the wealth piece is nice, right? Like we're aiming to do some big things and be able to have that, but it's less about that monetarily and more just about the time, the ability for me to see my boys play sports, the ability for me to coach, at least assistant coach, like be a part of their team, be a part of their lives. I think it's cheesy, but I think kids, it's not about what you tell them. It's not about the lessons that you espouse. They watch you, right? Kids are very, very intuitive and they will model your behavior, not necessarily just what you tell them. So if I say it's important, my family's important to me, and I'm just never here, I'm not showing you with my actions what is actually important to me.
Welcome back to the AI Edge podcast, where we talk with founders, operators, and investors who use system strategies and sharp execution to drive real results. Today's guest is someone whose journey is unlike anything you typically hear in real estate. Ben Nelson is the partner at Wild Oak Capital with over $100 million in multifamily assets under management and more than 1,000 doors acquired. But before that, Ben spent years producing and managing some of the most complex, high-stakes action sport events on the planet. World record jumps, global tours, major productions, environments where precision and execution are everything. Today, he brings that same mindset into multifamily operations, community building, and capital raising. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great to have you here. So Ben, when we let's start off with your path. When somebody asks you in real life, what do you do? How do you normally answer that?
Well, I say, we raise money and we syndicate real estate, but for a long time, man, over, close to 20 years, I produced action sports events. So what that means, people are really familiar with the name Red Bull. Red Bull was a big client of mine for a long time. We were really lucky to get into a space where we started producing a lot of things and you mentioned some world records and it was great, but it was definitely a journey, right? Like, so I was a ski bum out of college. I thought I was going to be an athlete and got hurt. And then, really kind of wandered my way through some stuff and found myself in skiing. And then I found myself in Spain and I really, really took to events. I went back to skiing. I grew up skiing in Durango, Colorado, some events in college. And then after that, and I really realized like I loved events, but I just loved the puzzle more than anything else. So I picked up all my stuff and moved to New York City because I figured if I'm going to do it as a craft, I might as well go where it's, I can move the fastest and learn the most in the shortest period of time. So, and I put myself in an environment where I was like, if I don't know anything about it, like I knew skiing, I knew action sports to start with, I grew up with it. So I started going into fashion shows, believe it or not. So we spent a bunch of time like learning and perfecting the craft. And I learned so much. But I will say it wasn't my thing, right? Like I learned as much as I could, but I really didn't enjoy it as much as I did action sports. So that was right when Red Bull started coming out with big events. And, we got to know the guys in Red Bull in New York really well. I was young and fortunate enough to be given a shot to work on some big stuff. So we broke a couple of world records in New York and built some pretty big things. We built this giant snowboarding hill in Lower Manhattan on the East River one time. And, we got into really having a reputation for the off the wall, right? Like if we had to come up with a crazy idea and could it be done, a lot of times would get a phone call, which is great. So by way of that, done a ton of racing. If it can be raced, we've probably raced it at one point or another, bikes and cars and planes and everything else. And my last big event was actually a race in New York City. We took over the Red Hook Container Terminal and a bunch of land around there and produced the Formula E race. And I remember just thinking, I was just gone a lot. And I have 2 kids, I have 2 little boys. And early on, it was great. It was super fun. And my wife would travel and I would travel at the same time. We'd come home. And as soon as, for all the parents out there, as soon as you have that first, it's kind of like going back and forth and you hand off in time. And by the time we got second and you're not, you got to go to zone defense as a single parent instead of man on man. It just became pretty obvious that the clock, it was time to start looking at something else. Not because I didn't love it, but I also just felt like I'd done everything I had wanted to accomplish. So my youngest brother, Eric, and I started talking really seriously about real estate. He'd done some investing already and picked up a couple small multis and some single families in Durango. He and I went in on a joint venture and ran and we picked up 2 quadplexes in Lubbock. Was really our first investment as a team and as a partnership, which we learned a ton, just like everybody else on their first investment, right? Like the good and the bad. And we can dig into some of that too, like some of the biggest mistakes that we made on property management and how we chose property management and how we associated with them and, set expectations, learned from that first investment. Exited out of that one. We didn't get rich by any means, but we didn't lose any money, which is great. And then really started looking at syndication. And like I said, my last race, I signed the papers for our first investment at the last race. So it was kind of like this cool full circle moment. And we moved on from there. So we have a couple of partners with Shane Brooks and Bonnie Wayman is incredible partners. Shane is the smartest person I know by far, and Bonnie is like the best asset manager we could ever ask for. So that combined with some other really smart and talented people, we've moved into the real estate space. And Eric and I, especially, we just said, hey, I think we should make a run at this syndication thing. It really makes a lot of sense. And our joined experiences and brain power, he comes from engineering, so we can kind of lean on each other and be real honest with each other. So that's it in a nutshell, but I'm happy to expand how you like.
That is amazing. So you've gone from coordinating massive action sports events to leading operations in world-class record stunts to managing large multifamily portfolios. What are the key turns that pulled you into real estate and eventually into YLO Capital?
Sure. So I think a lot of it the same. Like going back to it, I love the puzzle, right? Like that really is what I love about events, and I love how we produce things. And really, it's the puzzle and the people, I should say. And I find it's very similar in real estate because for example, we're very fortunate. One of our most recent investments just won an award, and it was an award for the best apartment building in the small community that's in, and it's all aggregated based on Google reviews. So it's not something that you apply for. It just shows that how important like the people on the ground are. And so what we really focus on is how do we build the best community for our people and thereby raise the NOI, thereby raise money for our investors. And so we really hammer that all the time. And that's how my brother and I came to start investing together, is we had sort of this shared mentality, like, hey, if we're going to go about this, what does it look like and how do we want to do it well? So going back to your question, I love working with people and I love the puzzle. So real estate was interesting in the sense that there's a lot of different personalities. There's a lot of different types of folks. There's a lot of different investments, right? You have the, New York City suit tech bros all the way down to me, wearing a Broncos hat. And, I'm an outdoors guy. Most of my investors come, like, I'll meet them skiing. Like, we'll go outside. We're very, very people first driven. So it wasn't a huge leap to go from events into real estate. Understanding the terms and, getting to know the lay of the land definitely took a little bit of time. There definitely was some of that sort of imposter syndrome, right? Like, should I be wearing a collared shirt? And they just felt hokey, but it was one of those things where we transitioned in based on, hey, we're looking around. We see other people doing this. We're by no means the smartest guys in the room, but we're also not the dumbest. We think we can figure this out. We also do a lot for our families and a lot for other folks. So I think the other thing to say is, especially in action sports, I kind of really wanted to do it for all the folks around me as well and provide a place. There's a lot of folks that just go from job to job. Like, event work is gig work, right? Like, most of us are employed by ourselves. We don't have a 401k. We don't have a lot of that stuff. And so a lot of people, if you're not paying attention to it, time can sneak up on you. So the ability to compound this over time, it's by no means a get rich quick scheme, but you have the ability to do a lot of good for a lot of people and make some people some money, including ourselves.
Incredible. So let's strip away the flash. You've gone from action sports, right? What did those experiences teach you about leadership, precision, and execution?
Yeah. I think the lessons learned it's just like anything else, right? Like, you compile the things that go really well and you compile the things that don't go so well. Fortunately, I think action sports, or just producing in general, gives a mentality of, it's not if something will go wrong, something is going to go wrong, no matter what you do. And I think that especially is a mentality of people who come into a real estate or into action sports or into producing in general. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine recently who's, he's a CrossFit gym owner and he's trying to produce his own first event. And I said that same thing. I was like, listen, you got to be prepared. There's at least 3 things that are going to go wrong just in this little time frame. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, just trust me. Be prepared. Something's going to go wrong, but it doesn't mean that it has to kill the event. It doesn't mean it has to kill everything. So to me, that leadership mentality is also passing that along, right? Give people the space to do what they're really good at. Find people who are really good at the things you need. We're really fortunate in the event industry in the sense that I got to handpick all of my favorite people almost every single event, right? Like, there's some ups and downs, there's some of that, but we got to go in and I'm like, I need this person, I need this person, I need this person. If we're racing trucks on the snow in Maine, we need X number of skill sets. If we are producing a Red Bull event in the depths of the desert, we need another type of people, right? So the ability to kind of pick and choose and ask really good questions and learn who your team is and then enable them to go do that work, and knowing something's going to go sideways and we're all going to have to work together to figure that out. So that applies to, we go back talking about like working with property managers and working with, vendors. It's the same thing. Like, I think anybody who goes into any project thinking like, oh, the underwriting is flawless, all the returns will be great, nothing's going to go sideways. Like that CapEx budget is dead set in stone. It just doesn't work like that. So the ability to have the knowledge that something's going to go sideways and to put the right people around you to fix it is the number one lesson for sure.
That's amazing, Ben. So what patterns do you see in teams that perform at really high level? And how does that translate in the way that you operate deals and manage investor relationships today?
Sure. I think the biggest lesson there is number one is communication and honest, real communication, right? It doesn't have to be, you have to break everybody's heart every single day, but the ability, Rick and I are really fortunate in the sense that not only are we brothers, we're business partners, but we're really honest with each other and we have been for a long time. So there are days, everybody has bad days, everybody has bad months, right? Like we have the ability to call each other out on it and say, hey man, what's going on with you? You seem like you're a little off, or hey, this seems like it's not going as well as it could. What's going on? Or but in a team, it's the same way. Like the ability to recognize when somebody is starting to slide or somebody's not necessarily, doing it, or the opposite. Like somebody's killing it. Like man, like Bonnie, for example, lately she is just on fire, and it is so awesome to see people who kill it. But that you have to communicate, and you have to communicate well, and you have to tell the truth. We say this, I say this to Kathleen, one of our favorite property managers when we first started. I was like, we might not always agree, we might not always see it the same way, but I promise I'll always be honest with you. And that I think more than anything else will get you through 80% of the issues if you can just get to the cut to the chase and get real. The other thing is execution, right? Like the ability to say, hey, we need this done and it needs to be done soon. Like putting things off, waiting a week, waiting 2 weeks, that it just piles up. So the ability to communicate well and the ability to execute at speed.
Amazing. You share something in your prep form that I absolutely loved, Ben. All right.
What's
Not
that?
just finding your niche, but finding your people. Where did you get that philosophy from?
Honestly, getting into real estate originally was tough, but it was all in my brain. And the reason was at a certain level, and I'm sure it's the same for almost every industry, but we're really good. I was really good, and I still am. Like I don't know that I'll ever completely give up events. Like I still consult, we still do event work here and there. But there's a mentality in that really high end levels. Like, oh, okay, cool, you quit, on to the next one. Like this space is not for everybody. In fact, it's for almost nobody, right? Like you're on the road a lot and you're outside all the time. And it can be really hot. It can be really, there's like a million things. And it's really high stakes. You make a mistake, like somebody could die. But getting out of that, and I had that wrestling in my brain of like, did I quit? Did I give up on it? There's just something early. And I just finally had to get to a place where I don't need to be anything for anybody else, right? Like I have nothing left to prove. And, in the beginnings, like, especially at the higher end stakes of real estate too, it's like, all right, there's some big players here, dudes wearing suits, but that's never been me. I've worn a suit once in my life and it was to my wedding and it's still hanging in the closet, right? Like, that's not who I am. Like, I have conversations more with people, like I said, on ski lifts or on bikes or going on hikes or we're out. Like, adventure is definitely something that's near and dear to me. And that I pass on to my kids. So once I've really decided and that this was my space, but B is like, I don't owe anybody anything. The people who want to invest with me are going to like me for who I am. And that's who I want. I want my investor base to be people I want to adventure with. I want to go skiing with them. I want to pick up their phone when they call me, for better and for worse, right? So that's, I think, the mentality of like, who do I want to spend my time with? Who do I most want to invest with? Like who do I like trust to ask ideas and for them to ask me questions? When I got out of that action sports space and I really kind of got past that, like, that whether it's imposter syndrome or like, oh, I quit, you faded out. Like, no, I accomplished everything and more that I could ever dream. I'm so thankful. I've stood on top of mountains and in the depths of deserts and on the oceans. And I can say I've said today was a good day more times than most people deserve. Right. So everything else is gravy. Like we're on another adventure. And I just see that as like the next step of what we're trying to do. And so I'm going to surround myself with great people. And if it means that there's some people that don't invest with us, cool. I'll send you to somebody else that may be a better fit. If I'm not your brand, if you don't dig the Broncos, that's cool, man. Like that's all fine. But this is where we're going to be. And this is how we're going to invest. And this is how we're going to move forward. If you do like that, jump on because we're going places.
That's amazing. Tell me about some of the action sports that you've been involved with.
Man, that's a long list.
Just
We
a few.
started off really, like I said, my first big event was with Kevin Robinson. He's a former BMX rider who passed away a couple of years ago, but we had his world record breaking event in Central Park. And that was kind of like the big one that started everything for me as far as Red Bull and for those types of things. And, we did a world record for skiing. We were on the ground for Red Bull Stratos. So I'm not sure if you're familiar, talk about like computers and AI, like it was the first real worldwide streamed event on the internet. And it was really difficult. I think we broke 8 or 9 world records out of that one alone. But, we've raced trucks. It wasn't a joke. We've raced trucks, off-road trucks on snow in Maine in the depths of winter. We've done, mountain bike events. We've done car racing events. A good buddy of mine who used to work for Red Bull then moved on to Nitro Circus, and we helped them start their not the tour itself, but there was an actual contest called the Nitro World Games. So we started in the middle of Utah Stadium and had all the vert and skate and, BMX. And then we moved on, added rallycross and doing these giant 120-foot over under jumps. And you start working with guys like Pastrana who just come up with these ideas out of the back of their head, and you're like, all right, let's go do it. But that's half of the fun, right? Like, truly, I always say it's not fun unless it's just a little bit hard. And that's being around people who are so motivated to be excellent and to be really, really good and to not cut corners. Man, it's just a joy.
It's a little dangerous, right?
It is. It is. I would say, like, when people talk to me about, hey, well, you've moved on, how does it feel to like have these conversations? Like, the one thing I don't miss is, having an everyday conversation. Like, all right, here's what happens if somebody dies today. We don't have to have that every
Wow.
single day.
That's extreme for sure. Did you participate in any of those events?
No, not so much. I mean,
No?
we work with some really high end athletes, and it's just like if you say baseball or football, some of these athletes in their sport and in their niche are just truly God-given talent, man. Like, there's some people that can ski. I love skiing. I will ski till the day I die. I know that there are skiers that are just phenomenally better than I am, and they just woke up that way. Same thing for, football, same thing for drivers, same for these things. So I would say I absolutely enjoy it. I love race cars. We love going in the desert and running around with those. I love skiing. We love mountain bikes, but working with people who are at that level is truly inspiring, and it's cool. It's really cool to be able to say, hey, we're going to set this stage and we're all going to work together to do something nobody has ever done before. Is pretty magical.
It's amazing. Amazing. So you mentioned you're working on two completely different deals right now. Let's start
We
with
are.
let's start with the first one, Ben. What's the
Yeah.
story
So there's
behind it? And initially, what caught your attention to be an operator?
Sure. Well, right now we're working on two. I'm not sure when this comes out. So this is December 8th in 25. So just prior to Christmas. The first deal is a good buddy of mine. Actually, he's a former pro skier also. I met him randomly through some friends. Incredible guy. Like, he's an alpinist. He's a mountaineer. He's skied off of Everest, like those kinds of things. And so he and I hit it off pretty quick.
That's cool.
But he's a developer here in town in Golden. He's got a really ambitious project that just fits. Like, he made really good friends with Wells Fargo back in the day. There's an old wire transfer processing plant that takes up a good chunk of downtown real estate that's just sitting fallow. So he's picking that up and turning it in a really incredible building. It's condos for sale, and there's a commercial component to that, adding some parking downtown. And, I'm not usually not a heavy development guy. Like, we really like our space as far as the multifamily and and building communities. But working with a guy like Chris and in such an awesome space, everything's been overdeveloped. The absorption rates are really tough in a lot of metros. But Golden is a really interesting niche in the sense that it hasn't had the same woes. The ability for us to work with folks like the Coors and things like that is really interesting as well in town. So we love that one. That's an open, that's a 506C deal, so accredited investors only. But if you're interested in that, we can talk about it. The other one is right down our, at Wild Oak, we do have this conversation a lot about, like, hey, what kind of assets do we really want to own, and what kind of assets do we want to work with people on? And I think the biggest thing that we've learned is we're not looking to do 300, 400, 500 unit apartment complexes. We'll cap out around 250, 275. Our main bread and butter is like that 100 to 150, somewhere in there. Mostly because we know the process so well. And we pick very specific markets. Like, we're in Tulsa, we're in North Little Rock and above. We're in like very specific places, mostly because we really love the management, and we go back to people. So, like, all right, cool. Do we know the management? Can we add our management into this space? Perfect. That's number one. Number two is, like, is there an upside here that's not just financial? Is there a way for us to go in this project that we're working on, for example? There's an ability to go in and take this property. It's unfortunately somebody got into it and was overextended and never was able to complete the things that they told the tenants they were going to, right? So we can come in with fresh capital. We can do a lot for the building. We can do a lot for the grounds. We can do a lot for the tenants and raise their level of living really pretty quickly. Also, you say, hey, all these things, we try to do really modest rent bumps for the most part. Like, we want to go through, obviously that's how everybody makes money, but say, hey, if we fix all these things and we add a dog park, we add a playground, we add these types of things and improve the way you're living, is that worth a couple bucks extra every month? And almost always the answer is yes, right? Like, we're not trying to go in and like scrape out and kick everybody out. We can lift the community up. We can do a really good job of that. and we can make money for our investors at the same time. That's how we want to live. So we're working on one in Victoria, Texas. That's exactly that. It's a great value add play, straight down the middle. I won't give metrics. I hate when people start spouting metrics. If you're interested, then give me a shout. But it is one of the best deals we've ever underwritten. Mostly just because I think we're all seeing that turn, right? Like people, when money was cheap and everybody was smart, and now it's the chickens are coming home to roost a little bit, for better and for worse. Like we know the people and we don't wish ill on anybody, but we're able to pick this up at a basis that is well below replacement, and it leaves a lot of cushion for everybody. The other thing we like to do, and this is a unique deal that a lot of people don't see, is we're not going to refi our investors out of the deal. So even at the return of capital, we keep the investors in the deal for the lifetime of the deal until we actually dispose of it, until we sell it. So if you have an 8-pref, then you have an 8-pref for the entire life of our ownership and our group ownership. So we don't refi people out. We want everybody to participate. We believe that there's enough here for everybody if we do a good job.
Amazing. How do you acquire these properties? What's your acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've been really lucky lately. It's just like anybody else. You make phone calls and you talk to brokers and, kind of pound the pavement and figure out what's there. We do have some conversations with, off market and with some of the owners, but truly broker relationships are irreplaceable, in my opinion, mostly just because you have, again, it's people, right? People having conversations, and the exponentiating power of those conversations is really where it's at. Additionally, we've the last couple, like, yes, they're brokers with us, but it's also, hey, this deal fits you because it's coming across the wire. We're going to give you guys a first look at it. This property management company that you love already manages this property. So that's our last deal in Durant, the one we won the award for. It literally just fell in our lap. We weren't necessarily looking, but our broker and our property manager both called us. We're like, hey, you guys need to pick up this deal. Like, great, let's do it. Makes sense. And so, it takes a little time and kind of walking that road and building those relationships. But once they're built, like that's what we look for. I will say we're also really picky. And I know a lot of people say that, but we didn't transact at all in 24. We don't have this need to say, hey, we have to make deals. We have to do this. I think that's where people get into a lot of hot water, and we're starting to see a lot more volume, and we're starting to see it come back. And I'm sure you're the same way. Like it's definitely different than it was 2 years ago, but we're really happy about our process. And we're not, we're not looking to build a $3 billion company. We're looking to build a company that supports our life and our families and our investors. And we're happy about that. So it's not about transaction volume.
Amazing. Any other asset classes or just multifamily exclusively? Are you in industrial? Are you in RV parks, mobile home parks, storage facilities?
Not so much. We've looked at a lot of stuff. And I think there's a lot there that's shiny object syndrome, right? So when we first came into it, multifamily was the hot ticket. Everybody was smart and money was cheap and you can pick up a deal and everybody's selling and making a bunch of money. And we sell. I think I have friends in all of the spaces. I have friends who are in parking. I have friends who are in storage and in mobile home parks. And I have conversations with them all the time. And I think that there's a little bit of shiny object syndrome for a lot of folks. If it makes sense, like I said, I know Chris, I like that development. I like the product. So I'll jump in, I'll help him raise some money for that, right? But that's not what we do every single day. I believe in it, so I'll say that I do. But for us, we focus on getting really, really good at what we're good at and continuously putting people around us that can help us do that. I don't think there's any shortage of, workforce housing needs in this country. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. So, now there's a new wave of like buying and flipping businesses. And like everybody that was in syndicating is now suddenly a business expert and they're buying and flipping houses businesses. And I personally don't see that. We're steady. We know that we're on the right path, knock on wood. We think we're going to, we know we're going to take our knocks here and there, but we also believe that what we're doing is good for communities, it's good for people, and it's good for our investors.
Yeah, it's beautiful. As far as your markets, where are you looking, or where do you own assets currently?
Sure.
Are there certain markets that you don't want to touch? Like, I'm definitely not going there. Like New York. What about
Well, I mean, there's definitely roads to cross, right? Like everybody, there's money being made everywhere. If you're really good in New York and you know New York and you have the contacts, more power to you, man. Like go get it. Same thing for California. Everybody's like, don't go to California. And there's something to be said for, landlord friendly or not friendly states and things like that. We're more focused on kind of Sunbelt type, no snow. Like I'm not looking to go into Detroit. I know a lot of people making money in Detroit. That's not necessarily our thing. And again, it's also based around where we know the management and we can do a really good job with those folks. So we're firmly in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas right now. Love Tulsa. Like that's one of our favorite towns. I don't ask me to start talking about Tulsa because I'll give you like all the reasons why. But and like that North Little Rock, Bentonville, Fayetteville, that whole zone is really interesting to us as well. Also, I like going there, and we've got some good friends there. And the mountain bike team moved from Colorado to Arkansas. There's some pretty good riding out there. But it's truly, like I said, the deal that we have in Oklahoma, they just fell in our lap. It's like, hey, this makes a bunch of sense and it's downhill for us, right? Like it lines up, it's super easy. So we could go into, we don't own anything in Oklahoma City. We've looked a bunch, but I would go there because I know we can instantly place management that already exists in that space and we can move at speed. I think that's the other hard part in getting into this or expanding into other markets. I've made tons of mistakes with property managers. We've had to fire multiple property managers over the course of our career. And a lot of it, I would say, is just there's no way to truly know what you're getting into until you get into it. And also the management expectations are already set, right? Like we don't have to start over from zero. Like this is how we report and this is what we expect and this is what we see. We just start moving at speed.
Nice. Do you have in-house management or do you outsource it?
We outsource it, but like I said, we're as close to vertically integrated as you can be without like actually being integrated. I would say for us anyway, right? Like they operate for other operators, but for us, it's super easy. We have a couple of very, very favorite folks that operate in those locations, and I'll call them on their cell phone, like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And very often, like, "Well, I've seen that property 3 times," or "We already managed that," or "I had a conversation with a broker about that. I think you should get it or shouldn't get it for these reasons." Right? We underwrite side by side with our property management team, and we do it independently a lot of times as well. We're like, "Hey, here's the deal. Take a look at it. See what you come back with." We're going to do that also blind, and then we can compare what we're working on. So that's, I understand why people do go in-house management, but especially from afar, like I'm in Colorado, Bonnie's in Colorado, Jane's in Texas, Eric's in Spain right now with his family. We trust the people on the ground, and we just, like I said before, when you're picking teams, pick really, really good people and let them do what they do best.
Amazing. When you evaluate a new property, Ben, what's your internal checklist? What are the non-negotiables that have to line up before you move forward?
Man, that is a very loaded question. I think every property is unique, right? So I think the non-negotiables are you have to get inside every unit. There's things like boiler chillers and, vintages and the way that they're built and things like that. But I don't think that you can just say that, like, we're not going to touch a building that was built before 1980. We might, but it depends on what that building is. Boiler chillers are probably the one thing we've gone through that, and it's it's tough. It's not to say you can't do it, and it's not to say there's not a value in that property asset or that type, but you have to ask a lot more questions. And I think that's really more than anything else. There's not a single playbook for every single property. On our website, like I created this 55 questions to ask your syndicator for new investors, and it's on wildoakcapital.com. You can go get it. It's free. Would love for you to have it. But I think when you're evaluating on the ground investment, it's asking like, what does it feel like too? Like we're big gut feel folks. I've passed on properties that it looked great on paper, and I went there and I was like, just something feels off about this. I can't tell you what it is, but this is something I have to pass on. But it's just doing your due diligence, man. Like, finding out, like asking good people, getting real people on the ground that know what they're talking about. Bring some plumbers out, bring some pest folks out, like do the work and do a good job. And I mean, you'll find out these things. You start poking holes and things, and you'll find out what's behind the wall pretty quick, right? Like for, both literally and figuratively. So I think it's less that there's like a list and more just like, hey, this is this property. It's a 2-story. It's got gabled roofs. It's got older appliances. Here's the list that we now have to go and take a look at. Like, when were all these ACs replaced? How fresh are they? Like appliances, plumbing, electrical, like let's dig into some of that. Or it's like, hey, this is a fairly new build. Then what are the problems because of that, right? Like what has been turned, or has unit types and mixes? Like there's a lot there. I hope that answers your question.
No, that was fantastic. I think you gave us a great list. So you're an operator, former producer, and a dad. How has fatherhood shaped the way that you think about building wealth, freedom, and community?
I mean, really the switch is for that, right? Like I think I didn't come off the road because I hated it. I mean, I loved every minute of it, but I also realized, I have a video in my phone that I look at every once in a while, and it's quite literally my son's like, "Hey, Dad, hope you woke up well. Like, happy Father's Day. I can't wait to see you." And it's like that just guts you, right? So the ability for me to be here, the wealth piece is nice, right? Like we're aiming to do some big things and be able to have that, but it's less about that monetarily and more just about the time, the ability for me to see my boys play sports, the ability for me to coach, at least assistant coach, like be a part of their team, be a part of their lives, show them. I mean, I think it's cheesy, but I think kids, it's not about what you tell them. It's not about the lessons that you espouse. They watch you, right? Like kids are very, very intuitive, and they will model your behavior not necessarily just what you tell them. So if I say it's important, my family's important to me, and I'm just never here, I'm not showing you with my actions what is actually important to me, right? So that's where we try to say, hey, this is the most important thing for me is being around as much as I possibly can be, and everything else is gravy.
That's beautiful. What do you think separates operators who burn out from those who actually build a life that they enjoy?
Expectation. I think, any business is tough. Like there's good days and bad days, right? Like this is not an easy job either. And people who think, there's a lot of that sort of get rich quick mentality, or suddenly I'm going to become a syndicator and I'm going to get 1,000 doors and $1 million in their assets under management. And like, I'm suddenly going to be rich. And that's not the reality, right? It takes a long time and you can bite off more than you can chew. You can get into some pretty hot water. It's not an easy thing, but the expectation of what you want is really important, and being really truthfully clear with yourself on what you want to get out of this. Now it's real in the sense that like some people try to go it alone, or you have a small team, or you don't put tools in place that can help you, put systems in place that can help you grow. I think the other thing is just like, what is it that you want out of it, right? Is it freedom? Is it time freedom? Do you want to be rich? And what does rich mean, right? Like, so being able to sit with your team and say, hey, this is what we want to accomplish this year is great. Setting goals, we're big proponents of setting goals. Eric runs an entire coaching program around that type of program. But if you don't understand the why behind it, it's all for naught.
Absolutely. When you look at your day to day running a multifamily business, where do you think most operators get bogged down? Where do you see the biggest friction in communication process and execution right now?
That's tough. I mean, communication is the hardest piece, and especially once you get to a place where we have, multiple properties and you have to report every month. Like we do monthly reporting for almost all our properties. Some of them are quarterly, but most of them are monthly, but continuous communication and getting information out there. So it's tools, like getting bogged down. Like there's just the day-to-day tasks. Like no matter how good you get at, things take time, right? So either you need to put some tools in place. I mean, I know you're a big AI guy. You need to find some AI tools that can help. And you also need to find some really good people who understand those things. And we're working on that, right? Like by no means am I the highest expert or the best at it. We all do it with our tools what we can. But I think the biggest part is understanding, like, again, it's a day-to-day process. Like what actually takes place. We have to have your weekly meetings with your property managers. You go through what's good, you go through what's bad, you figure out how we can communicate better, you figure out how you can manage expectations better. So it's less about a slog or getting bogged down. I think it's just people, I don't know that people understand the workload that's involved, and you have to constantly communicate to raise money, and you have to constantly communicate with people who've given you money. Like to be a good steward and to do your job well, it just takes time.
That was the number one complaint. I had a previous guest who actually runs a platform where they do reviews on GCs and LPs, do reviews on them. The biggest complaint is lack of communication, lack of transparency, just not being able to communicate exactly what's going on. If something happens or if something goes south, let us know, right? So being
Yeah.
communicated is fantastic. Talk to us a little bit about some of the automations that you may be using or not be using, or where do you think AI is currently in your business?
Holy moly. Well, I think if you're not paying attention to AI, if you think it's going to go away, I think you're wrong. I'll just say that. I think you probably have a very similar feeling, but I think it's also in the way in which you use the tool. So we use very simply. So for example, this deal we launched in Victoria, or the one we had in Durant, I build an AI model, a chat model for every single one of them. And we dump all of our information into that model. So it becomes a tool for us, but it's also a great tool for the investors, right? Like, especially people who are like vetting the deal and asking questions. If I can go, and everybody has a different timeline. So once I put my boys to bed and I'm kind of finishing up for the day, if I can go on there, and I'm not going to call somebody at 9 p.m. at night, right, and ask them a bunch of questions, but I can dump a bunch of questions into that. And we always have the asterisk and say, hey, there's no substitute for having a real one-on-one conversation with a GP, but you can probably get most of your answers. Like, hey, if I invest out of my okay, can I do that? And if I do, and I into SDRA, like, what are the steps and what does that look like? And, say we're going to do bonus depreciation, like we're going to do a cost seg study. What does that do for me for returns? What does that do for me on the out? Like, there's a lot of those types of things that you can go through. Or what's the waterfall structure? What's the pref structure? Things like that. The ability to ask a lot of those questions and have them there at a very base level is super nice. I think the AI automation tools that we put in, there's things like Zapier and things like that move information around, which are pretty base level. But what's funny is I had a conversation today with a guy named Adam Carswell, He used to work with Hunter Thompson, super, super smart guy and very turned on to AI. And the things that he's showing me in some of the platforms, like the way he's integrating his mail and the way he's integrating like building podcasts and scripts and things like that. Again, I don't think there's ever going to be, it's getting better and better. I don't think there's ever going to be a model that can speak how I want it to speak, but man, it can get me 80% of the way there, right? And the ability for us to start communicating in such a way or crossing over and make us faster and more efficient is what's going to be interesting. Communication tool is really important. Like we can come up and start building some of these things like the reports, like we can dump in a lot of the data, right? Like it can automatically pick up what we're looking at, aggregate it in such a way that we can communicate that well, write us a basic script like, hey, here's what we're seeing. And I'll go through and we'll like, yep, this is good. This is good. I need to change that. I need to change that. And then get that out. But again, it's time. So instead of starting from scratch, you can get 80% and then you polish it and it's all legit and it's all real and it's all our information. But your just ability to communicate faster and more clear is really, I think, what's going to change, especially in this space. I think the ability to do research I'm interested in as well, right? Like the aggregation of things that are on the market. Most of our deals they may be listed on the market or we get them right before they do at this point. But I think asking real questions of aggregated data. So again, I was talking to Adam and we're just pinging ideas back and forth. And we're talking about cap rate and how that cap rate is subjective and not objective. Like you'll go into a market and stop me if I'm going too deep here, but I think going into a market and saying, hey, this property that they're selling, they say it's at a 6.5 cap, right? And we're looking at all the data that we've been provided and said, I don't think that's true for these reasons. The market itself might be a 6 cap, right? Or a 6.5. But I see that you're at 75% occupancy, and the occupancy that you do have is all on the concessions, like you're like specials, right? Like move-in special, 2 months free, blah, blah, blah. Like the ability to say you're going to achieve these rents when you're still doing this thing where you're like promoting all these different pieces, we're going to underwrite that to like a 7.5 cap, right? But and this is where the AI comes into it. Is like I can also then go into these models and say, hey, can you produce me tables of cap rates across these different metros and these different segments based on these things? And I can aggregate a ton of data for me to look at and analyze much faster than if I'm just like Googling like cap rate X because keyword and things like that. The ability for us to gain knowledge and utilize knowledge, I think, is exponentiating.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can do some amazing research, some demographics, market research, even underwriting. Have you seen AI models do underwriting for you?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. And again, I think it's not bad because it's the same thing. It's a math problem, right? It's data. So
Exactly.
you can plug that in and say, hey, based on what you're seeing, it'll just help you get through, in my opinion, it'll help you get through a lot of duds quickly. Because that's the other thing you have to do when you start this game in real estate. Like people as an investor, especially if you want to be a GP, you want to run things like that first, like 100 to 300 reps of underwriting and just learning, right? Like that's part of it. So I think once you get to that, I don't think there's any substitute. You have to be able to do that on your own and understand it. But once you do that, you can say, hey, we're going to plug in these parameters. I can take an OM, throw it into the model. It'll run the numbers and shoot me back a return and be like, cool, that one clearly doesn't work, right? Like based on our parameters and what we want. But then you get 5 maybe that say out of 50 or 100, which is true. Like for every 100 deals you look at, you may get 5 that are worth looking at. But then like right away, like, cool, these are the 5. Now I'm going to go back into the underwriting and like start messing with it and figuring out like, okay, why is this way? Or in this specific market, what are we seeing on insurance, for example? In this specific market, what are we seeing for taxes? And then you can make a really solid judgment call and like, okay, I believe in this deal. This is worth another look. But again, it helps your speed more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that can be done digitally can be done lightning speed with AI because AI can do it much faster than any of us can do it manually.
Yeah, and doesn't need to sleep and doesn't need to eat.
Jen, have you ever seen it do lead gen or be able to find deals, deal finder type AI systems?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've actually not messed with a lot of the deal finder stuff. The lead gen is super interesting in the sense, like I said, I think you can build a lot of stuff really fast. There are lots of really interesting, like even AI podcasts that are going out right now. Like I was talking to Adam, same thing. Like you can dump in, and what's really interesting is like I was talking to him about it, and we're kind of playing with that, and he said, "Oh, cool. Let me show you this. Just give me a podcast or something that you listened to recently and that was inspiring to you." Like, cool, here's this thing. And I'll shout out Dallas Pruitt. He's one of my favorite people in the world. If you listen to his stuff, man, he has this morning podcast. It's phenomenal. I just said, hey, let's take this. So it went to YouTube, instantly ingested the YouTube, and then spit back out a script in my own voice based on my parameters that I put in. So like, oh, this is incredible. Same thing. Like, it's not that it's disingenuous. Like, it's all true to me, and I would tweak it and then I would put that out. But in a matter of 15 seconds, I have 5 different scripts for podcast ideas that I can now run with, and I can tweak a little bit and make them mine. But like, there's a place now where you don't even have to do that. Like, I can push another button and then it automatically takes either my voice clone or just another voice and puts the podcast out immediately. So if I want to do that and I approve it, I read the scripts, I can put an AI based platform podcast out in 37 seconds, and it's bonkers.
Crazy, right? Mind blown. Boom,
Yeah.
right? Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what you can do. I mean, we have AI where it's cold email outreach, where it will just outreach to people. It'll actually read the email, it will reply to the email. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
We also have AI agents too, or like receptionists that will actually answer the phone, be able to understand exactly what the other person is saying and sound like a human, be able to represent your business completely and book appointments for you, book calls or whatever the case may be. It's incredible.
Yeah, we utilize some of that. There's an interesting one we use on one of our properties as an agent for maintenance. So being able like have the ability to call and then forward, understand, and then forward those problems. You know, it's nice to know that there's somebody, like, you may not be able to get a person, right? But the person that information can forward it can already build a ticket, can already put it forward through
Exactly.
systems. So you're skipping 3 or 4 steps, and it allows us just to take care of our tenants better. It's,
Much
and they
easier.
know, they'll say, okay, cool, I'm going to call at 2 in the morning. And if it's like an emergency, something's happened, or like, pipe
Sure.
bursts, that's one thing. It was like, we got to fix a light switch plate is broken. Like, we want to get that fixed tomorrow. Cool. Great. No problem.
It'll take like 80 to 95% of the calls where, some of them are urgent enough where they need to talk to a human, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it allows for that. Again, it allows for speed. And it also allows for, like, when that happens and it's automated and people see results much faster, they're happier. But it also takes that time workload off of the manager so they can continue doing the other things that they need to be doing. So again, it just builds space.
Amazing. There's property management software out there also, or property management AI software out there that will basically take care of the tenants. It's incredible. So you summed up, Bedham, that your journey is in one word. It's solutions. What does solutions mean to you when everything is on the line?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like solving problems, man. It's like, if you have a mentality of everything has to go right, then I think that you're in trouble, right? Like, solutions based and enjoying the process of figuring something out is something I really enjoy. And so no matter whether we're producing events or, you're going on a family road trip and like the tire blows out, or like any of those things, if you have the ability, like, oh, cool, this is happening, let's figure this out, right? Like, and I think that's something I really try to work with all my boys too. It's like, okay, something's gone wrong. How do we figure it out? Like, let's use our brains. And I think, you know, that could be the argument for this whole AI thing. It's like, well, people don't have to think anymore. People don't have to remember anymore. Like, and that's fairly true, right? Like, we didn't have Google machine in our pocket 10 years ago, but I would say if your access to data to be able to solve those problems comes so much faster. Solutions, being solution oriented, the ability to take a step back and really enjoy the process of fixing things when they go sideways, or preparing, like solutions based, like, we're going to put a lot of these things in place before something happens, so we have our back pocket. Man, I just truly enjoy it.
That's amazing. Ben, you talked about being a partner at Wild Oak Capital. So what is the 3, 5, 10-year plan for Wild Oak Capital looking into the future?
Sure. I mean, I think 3, 5, and 10 are all fairly similar. We want to acquire properties that we can do a lot of good with, both for the tenants and for our investors. I think we definitely are bullish on investing. We like this space. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I think we're going to see rises and falls. We're going to see, bubbles and collapses in economies and in, across the board. But we think, from everything we've seen and across data for decades and centuries, this is a great place to be. So I think we're going to stay firmly in there. We'll make more acquisitions. We may pick up a few additional team members as we go to help carry the load, but it'll be based on need, right? It'll be based on how do we expand this in a very real and tangible way that's quality for us and quality for our life and quality for our kids. What I don't want is to create 10 more jobs for myself. I want to go skiing. I want to go take my boys. We want to disappear on a Friday if we want to, like that kind of thing. And it's going to take time. And I think it's going to take patience. So for us, like, what we look for in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years is we want to find some really, really quality people to put around us. And we want a lot of those to be our investors. We want people who are excited about what we're doing, and we want to make them some money. So if that's your jam, please reach out to me, let me know. Or if it's not, or if you're looking for somebody, we have our initial conversation and we don't jive, I promise I'll help you find somebody that does.
Amazing. As we head into the new market cycle, what's one piece of advice you'd give an operator or an investor who wants to position themselves well for the next several years?
Patience.
Patience.
I mean, there's no substitute for it. And when things move fast, like I said, when we got into this, everybody wants to move so quickly, and there's so much earnest money and going hard, and you have 52 people in the best and final, and it's gone now, and it's changed quite a bit, and it will change again. Once the market gets hot again, it will happen, and it's going to ebb and flow. So long game, please, please, please. If you're getting into this, understand, like, get around somebody who's been here for a little while. We had mentors that helped us. We had KPs that helped us, told us to be patient. And I think that that's the key. No matter what you're doing, realize that there's a tomorrow, that there's a 10 years from now, that there's 100 years from now. Like, we're on this earth for a handful of decades, and there's no reason to, like, understanding, like, even though that's a small snippet of time, like, you going faster and pushing as hard as you can today doesn't really change tomorrow. Like, the ability for you to take a breath. How do we do this well? Obviously move at speed, but, like, don't run over your own feet. Don't trip over a dollar or a dime to get a dollar to get a dime. Either way, right?
Love it. Patience is great. Ben, this was outstanding. Your journey from world-class productions to managing multifamily assets is one of the most unique perspectives in the industry, and the principles that you bring into operations are powerful. For our listeners who want to connect with you, learn more about Wild Oak Capital, or follow your work, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, I'm really active on LinkedIn, so I love that platform. Same thing for Instagram, not as active, but you can definitely reach out to me there. It's Ben Nelson 303 at both of those. You can find us at wildoakcapital.com. There's a bunch of resources there. You can listen to our podcast episodes there, find out all about us there as well.
That is awesome. Perfect. We'll drop those links in our show notes. This has been the AI Edge podcast. And if you got value from this episode, share it with an operator or an investor who appreciates sharp thinking, strong execution, and real community. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.